Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
We made this.
Welcome back to We Are Starfleet, your Star Trek recap and discussion podcast here on the We Made This network. This week, I am joined by my good friend Craig McKenzie. How you doing today, Craig?
Back again for the first in a triple run to the end of the season.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for pinch hitting for me today. I really appreciate it.
No problem. You didn't introduce yourself to the listeners, though. Nobody knows who you are.
Oh my goodness, you're right. I am Ian Buckley. Those of you who are regular listeners probably picked that up from the sound of my voice. But yes, I'm Ian Buckley, your host this week, and Craig is my guest. He is not hosting today. That is why this is much less organized.
I'll take that as a compliment.
You should. So how are you this week?
I'm very cold. In Scotland at the moment, it is below freezing, and it is deeply unpleasant.
Yeah, here in wintry Connecticut, it is not much warmer. I think we're looking at just a little bit above freezing right now.
Yeah, it's not a good time to be dealing with a cost of energy crisis.
Yeah, and I've always had these very, very susceptible to cold little bird bones, basically. I don't like being cold at all. I'm very glad for my layers. I've got a sweater on. I'm wrapped up in a blanket. I'm feeling pretty comfy right now.
They need better environmental controls to talk Star Trek.
We need better a lot of things, but always happy to talk Star Trek with you. And today we're discussing episode 18 of season 1 of Star Trek Prodigy, Mindwalk. I know that you and I have talked a little bit about Prodigy before. I know you and I are both big fans of the show. I presume nothing has changed since the last time we spoke. You're still generally a big fan of what's going on?
Yeah, I've cards on the table, so I wouldn't predict or pretend to predict anything. I've seen the whole season. Because of scheduling, I've actually recorded one half of the finale before this because time travel. We travel through time and we do these things. But after seeing the full season, I can confirm it is my favorite modern Star Trek. Unquestionably, I think this has been a great season.
I agree. I think you and I are both pretty much on the same page with this. I think that this is such a fantastic first season, right out of the gates, very self-assured iteration of Star Trek that, yes, is pitched towards maybe more of a broader audience, family, younger kids, etc. And it's shorter form storytelling, but the quality is really, really high, pretty much across the board. I don't know if there are any episodes that have stood out to me as maybe all-time classics, if that makes sense, which I realize is maybe a high bar to clear for a show like this, but it is such a consistently good show that I continue to be impressed. I can't wait to see the last 2 episodes, which I have not seen. So we won't be getting into any of that conversation, obviously, but I don't disagree at all. I think this is a really, really fine version of Star Trek. I think that the creative team and the voice cast and everyone involved can be really proud of the work that they've done.
Definitely, yeah. In terms of standout episodes, actually, I don't know if it was the last one you were on, but the one where they find the Enterprisians, the society that based themselves on the logs of a shuttlecraft that crashed. I think that's probably a standout one because it says a lot about getting into fandoms and how certain fandoms, all fandoms really, have gatekeepers that pretend that it's up to them who gets to join it because of how much of the media they've seen and all that stuff. Whereas that one was just saying, doesn't matter how you got there, doesn't matter how broad your consumption of this thing is, you are still valid, you're still real. And I thought that was a great message, and I think the episode did it wonderfully.
Yeah, I think that episode, like a lot of the best Star Trek episodes, for me at least, Star Trek is at its best when it has some real thematic depth to the episode. If it's a shorter show like this, I really appreciate when they're able to tie in meaningful themes, relevant themes to the storytelling that they're doing in this compressed format and in this like fun, family friendly, like kids adventure show format. Like they're juggling a lot of things with this show, and like we've said, it's a credit to the team that they've managed to pull off. It's been really fun to watch, and yeah, let's get into discussing this week's episode.
I do wonder actually if maybe the longer form shows are more bloated rather than this, because this is very tight in terms of the way it tells its story, whereas some of the longer stuff you're thinking that scene's only here because you want to make it 50 minutes or however long you're making it.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point. There is that sense, I think that some shows which are really tightly written, really tightly directed, they 50 minutes might go by and you're like, "Oh my God, it's over already?" No. And yeah, I think that with I I don't want to be too finger pointy. I'm a fan of the show, but I think that Discovery in particular is one, maybe Picard too, that does suffer from a bit of that story bloat where it feels like, really seems like we could have gotten to this particular part of the story in a couple of episodes rather than 6. Things like that come up in that show. I think Strange New Worlds is less guilty of that, but we're talking about a body swap episode this week. We did a body swap episode in Strange New Worlds. I think that, for me, I feel like there's maybe a little bit more fat in that Strange New Worlds episode because of it being a full-length episode. Even though I really like that episode, I really like the hijinks, there's just a little bit more time to fill in those 40-minute episodes, and sometimes it isn't used in the most efficient way. But like I said, I think Strange New World isn't as guilty of that as other new Trek shows.
I actually didn't like that body swap episode in Strange New Worlds all that much.
It's funny. See, I preferred slightly the comedic take on the body swap that they did in that episode to the one in this episode, which we'll get to. I liked this week's episode overall, but this week's episode didn't feel like it was a strong point of the season for me.
Yeah, I liked this episode as well. I did have some issues with it. I actually feel like it's an episode of two halves, and one half is better than the other. But we'll get further into that.
Yeah. So anyway, this week we pick up right where we left off last week. It is, obviously the answer to this, but it's not really hard to guess. I'm guessing that these last several episodes, as we race towards the finale, we're going to be basically having each episode pick up right where the previous one left off. Are you a little surprised by the level of serialization that we're having in this show?
Not really, because I think the structure of the story supports it. Everything's happening over a very short period of time. It's not that the protostar has been on the run for months on months and months, although it has been on the run for a little while, at least from the point that the diviner was defeated up until this point. There was enough time for an entire video game to take place, for example. But we're talking about probably weeks, not months, in terms of the show's running time, and things have to ramp up. And you've got the Dauntless constantly on their tails, so it makes sense that they're constantly reacting to something that's just happened. They don't have any breathing room. They don't have any time to just take stock of things. So yeah, it completely makes sense to me that everything is just a domino effect. It's all just falling into each other.
Agreed. It does make sense to me. I guess I'm a little bit surprised in a good way. I think it's a mature kind of storytelling. I think it speaks to, which is something we've touched on in previous conversations about this series, it speaks to the level of confidence that the show's creators had right from the get-go. It feels like the kind of move you might pull maybe in the show down the road a little bit. But you're right. The story that they're telling absolutely supports it. I'm fond of it. I'm just a little surprised. But like I said, in a pleasant way. I think it's really compelling. It propels everything forward. We got a few things that were importantly moved forward this week. We got the body swap, even though it was a sort of unintended consequence of this telepathic link that they tried to set up between Dal and Janeway, that did allow Janeway to get all the information she needs. And now she's got all the information. And of course, we see where she ends up at the end of the episode. But, now she's the sort of the mission that they were worried about accomplishing last week and struggling to accomplish this week has, in essence, been accomplished. They have transmitted, as it were, the information about what is actually going on with this ragtag crew on the Protostar.
Yeah, and there's always these things where you just wonder why they don't do something more simple. You had it in this episode when they merged the warp fields. They could literally look out the window and see inside the Dauntless. Hold up a piece of paper that says "Weapon of mass destruction on board. Do not open communications."
Right.
Or
It's
something
like
that.
you can see this person's face. You should be able to see a sign that they're holding up.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. There were a couple of things like that. I did like the warp bubble merging idea. I don't know if that's one that we've seen explicitly in Star Trek before. Correct me if I'm wrong.
In Enterprise, when
Oh,
the Klingon augment virus episodes, you had the bit where Enterprise was remaking speed. They couldn't go below warp 5 or they'd blow up.
okay.
They merged the warp field with
Okay.
Columbia so that Trip could be moved along a cable between ships.
Yep. I haven't made it that far in my Enterprise rewatch. I only saw the
Okay.
episode once a few years ago, so I didn't remember that part. Well, that's great then. I'm glad that it is a callback then to a show like that, which I've come to appreciate more as time's gone on. So that's cool. I thought that was an interesting way of dealing with of escalating the problem for them.
Yeah, the Dauntless is a really scary ship if you're on the Protostar. It's just massive and the Protostar is tiny.
So once the body swap happens, Dal is in Janeway's body on the Dauntless, and this is where the sort of hijinks element of the Prodigy body swap emerges, and it differs from the body swap storyline that we saw in Strange New Worlds in that, in Strange New Worlds, a lot of for me, the comedy of that body swap emerged from each of these characters trying to do their best to pretend to be the people that they actually were. Whereas in this, you don't really have any, Janeway does not pretend to be Dal once she finds herself in Dal's body. There's no, like, they figure it out immediately. It's right to business. It's right to, oh, okay, Janeway's now in Dal's body. We accept that. And we're going to off screen dump all of what's happened so far this season on her. And then when we cut back into it, she'll be like, wow, you guys have been through a lot.
Yeah.
I really appreciated the efficiency of that storytelling. There wasn't a lot of tedious back and forth of, her trying to pass herself off as Dal, them not believing it, trying to figure it was just right to, okay, this is the situation and we're going to move forward. Even real Janeway as Dal communicating with hologram Janeway was just, they just efficiently, okay, here's a childhood memory. Oh, great. I believe you. I know what's going on. And now we can move on. It was very efficient. Dahl's occupation of Janeway's body was the part of the episode that kind of bumped it for me. And this may be, again, a consequence of this being pitched at a slightly younger audience, perhaps. But to me, that was it was just a little too clownish, a little too much, a little too over the top, where I was, the minute these people who know Janeway, just like the audience who's familiar with Voyager knows Janeway, the minute Janeway spits out coffee and says, "How can she drink that?" Like that's you go to sickbay. There's something definitely wrong here. Everyone around her should know that immediately. And instead, I'm glad that she doesn't pull the wool over or he doesn't pull the wool over their eyes the entire episode. That would have been ridiculous. But I did feel like the amount of over the top strangeness that he was putting out there, and there was just zero effort to try and keep cool, try and not, be inconspicuous. Like, you're shooting finger guns at the helm officer. Like, what are you doing, buddy? It felt like Dahl is not this foolish, but it was played up for laughs, which bumped me a little bit watching the episode.
I think that's a consequence of this being a kids' show,
Yeah.
and I had the same issue with it, where Dahl just didn't even try
Right.
to pretend to be Janeway. And the thing is, they've created a really good character with Dahl, and he's a really intelligent character, and he's matured a lot in a short period of time. So,
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
I would fully believe that Dahl would have a go at the very least. Once he realized what was going on, panicked a bit. As soon as he interacts with someone else, you'd think he would have a go, and they could make comedy out of him being not quite right with Janeway, because he doesn't really know the real Janeway. So maybe he's trying to approximate the hologram, who's similar but not exactly the same, or something like that. But he just doesn't even try. And as you say, the rest of the crew are idiots because they just don't pick up on it. She's acting really weird, and they're just acting like everything's normal. Her first officer is just like, well, sit in your chair.
Yeah, not
Here's
just
your status report.
not just acting weird. She's acting like she is dissociating. She has a mental health crisis going on. Like, the fact that nobody picks up on that is wild. And you make an excellent point that I hadn't even considered. It's not like Dahl doesn't have a model for how to behave like Janeway. He's been living with her hologram for months.
Yeah. And another option is he just realizes, hang on, I'm surrounded by Starfleet officers. Weird stuff happens. Why don't I just tell them what's going on? And they'll probably scan me and then realize that this is what's going on. And then that'll be it. No problem.
Right. Or to get out of the situation that you find yourself in, like, just fake being sick, do something, anything else. But you're right. I think it is a consequence of this being a short animated series pitched towards a younger audience, and that's the kind of hijinks they're going to lean into, which, fair enough. But it was probably, for me, the toughest part of this episode for me.
Yeah, it was more my storytelling logic brain that was preventing me from fully engaging with it. But I will say that Kate Mulgrew playing Dal was amazing. She did such a good job. She was very funny.
Yeah, I think she did a great job. I really liked that this episode, and really these episodes in this back half of season 1 have allowed for, Kate Mulgrew to get back in the fold and is more than just a cameo. She's getting some real, meat to chew on, and some fun scenarios that she gets to put herself in that, like she probably thought she'd never again have anything to do with Star Trek outside of the convention circuit. And, now here she is, having a blast as Janeway again.
Yeah. Or as Dal in this
Or as
episode.
Dal Janeway, yeah.
I thought Brett Gray did a decent job of playing Janeway as well.
Yeah.
He got the inflections right. He got the pattern of speech down right, which is not an easy thing, I would imagine.
Right. That's the thing, is getting that distinctive voice and cadence down, because she has such a particular way of speaking.
Yeah, and the little cheat they did when the Dal body with Janeway in it was talking to the hologram and then switching it out so you see the two Janeways. I thought it was a really nice touch.
Yeah, I thought that was a good touch too.
Yeah, Kate Mulgrew's really, really coming back into the focus here. And the thing is, I've said this to Mike in the future, but I feel like this show is doing what a lot of the live action shows are doing, but better. This show is handling a legacy character better than Picard handles Picard.
That I don't disagree with. I will reserve judgment on how Picard season 3 is going to treat all the legacy characters who come back in it, but I think that this show is doing really right by Janeway, and even the little bits of Chakotay that we've gotten seem like, we're honoring that character as well.
Yeah. So it's really firing on all cylinders in terms of respect for the franchise, and it all feels part of the same whole. It never feels like they're pointing at you and saying, remember this. It all feels purposeful.
It's not just leaning into nostalgia, leaning into, hey, look, here are these characters, they're back, don't you miss these characters. It is weaving her into the story in an organic, believable way, and continuing to find new and interesting ways of deploying her.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really liking what they're doing with Janeway, and it shows the other producers of the other shows it's not that hard what you're trying to do here. It's not that hard. You're able to do it, and you're able to make it all cohesive. You're just not, for some reason.
It's a little strange. Obviously, it's a function of a lot of different teams with different mission statements and creative goals and creative direction. Not everyone, and they're working in different modes.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to say that if you swapped writers' rooms, if you just put these writers into the writers' rooms for Picard, that series would suddenly turn into a brilliantly conceived, cohesive masterpiece of television, or even anywhere closer to being on that end of the spectrum.
Yeah. I think with Picard, you have to worry about Patrick Stewart saying, I don't want to do that. I think that's
right. Exactly. And
I
think that, I do think that's a big part. And I say that with all the love in the world for Patrick Stewart and for the character that he helped create. But I think that some of his creative impulses over the years with that character and what to do with it have not been the best.
Whereas for Kate Mulgrew, you probably have, you want Janeway to be a mentor to a young group of misfit officers that aren't really officers? Sign me up. I'll do that. Oh, you want me up here as my older self in command of another ship chasing down those misfit officers? Yeah, I'll do that.
Exactly. She seems pretty game. And I get that, if the idea is, the whole thing is we have to get Picard back, and the only way to do that is to do whatever Patrick Stewart wants. And, we might have new and interesting directions to go with this character, but if he isn't on board, then the show doesn't get made. And I get that.
Yeah.
Obviously, that you have to thread that needle. It's just it's clear that has limited that show's capacity for success.
Definitely. Yeah. Whereas, well, I don't know how much input Kate Mulgrew has into the writing process. Probably not very much. I remember reading or hearing interviews with her early on, and she talked about how she had a lot of input in the design of the hologram, how it was going to look, and how much like season one Janeway should it look, and things like that. But in terms of, I don't know if she had much input in terms of what they were going to do with that hologram, but maybe she just read what they put in front of her and loved it, and then that was enough.
I think that, when we see other characters coming back in some of these shows, like we're going to see in Picard, there is a degree to which it's an impossible task to, you can't please all of the fans. And honestly, sometimes it seems like the more you try to please everyone, the less successful you are at pleasing anyone. But we want to see these beloved characters, if they come back, in ways that feel like it's okay if they're different than they were the last time we saw them. Last time we saw them might be 20, 30 years ago. That's fine. But it has to feel like an organic evolution or change, or even if it's not an evolution, if it's just change. Sometimes people get worse over time in certain ways, or some of their flaws become more pronounced. Like that's all fine. I'm interested in exploring those things. But when it feels like a cheap nostalgic cash in, or when it feels like you've gone in a completely inauthentic direction with a character, it's such a disappointment as a fan. And it feels, betrayal is too strong a word. We're not crazy fans, but it does feel disappointing.
Yeah. And the thing with Prodigy is Janeway's flaws as we knew them in Voyager are still intact. She still has that kind of belligerence. You saw it earlier when, well, she was arguing with Jellicoe to let her go into the neutral zone, and eventually she had to listen to him. And then she was all hell bent on following the protostar into the neutral zone, and her first officer had to say, "No, you're being compromised emotionally. Can't let you do this. I'm not following your orders." So it's almost like she's aware of her own flaws and surrounding herself with people that will challenge her and people she respects enough to let challenge her as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also that sort of like, screw the consequences, we're going in after them sort of attitude. Like that felt very much like, oh yeah, that's the Janeway I know. Like she would do that. Of course. Like I get it. She's a badass. She's gonna like she's laser focused on doing whatever it takes. And she's got a little bit of that edge of spending 7 years in the Delta Quadrant, having to do whatever it takes and making decisions without being a part of any sort of chain of command.
Yeah, now she has to listen to people. She has people that outrank her for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a good, again, like it's a believable evolution in the character while also being an authentic choice.
Yeah, I'm really loving what they're doing with Janeway in this show. And well, both kinds of Janeway, the hologram Janeway and real Janeway, both are really well done.
Yeah. And I didn't expect to see, when real Janeway came back into the picture in this show, I thought we were going to see, some of her. I thought we'd cut back and forth, but it would still be primarily focused on the main crew. And it has been, but we're still getting more of real Janeway than I expected at this point.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I didn't expect her to be essentially a growing subplot, because it started off with a couple of scenes in each episode, and now it's A and B plot is Protostar and then Dauntless.
Yeah, and I thought she might be, maybe not even a B plot regularly, but like an occasional sort of C plot check-in, kind of what's going on with Janeway in the background of whatever else is going on in the show. But it's really become a main part of it. And she, in addition to getting all of this crucial information that she needed from Dal and the crew, of the protostar, she gives one piece of crucial information, which we also kind of we kind of knew once we found out the doll is an augment that, oh, that's probably going to have consequences for any ambition that he has to join Starfleet. But the primary problem right now is, well, they can't even. It's a moot point because they can't go back to Starfleet until they fix this problem. But now with the prospect of them maybe, now that they've communicated what they need to communicate with Janeway, if she's able to get that information across, presuming we don't see the end of the Federation in the next couple of episodes, no spoilers.
Well, you've seen Picard and the Federation's still there, so...
Yeah, that's true. Unless we learn this is a different timeline.
Yeah.
But this, this conclusion that we're barreling towards, the tragic part for Dal is that he is going to learn that he is unable to learn Starfleet unable to join Starfleet because of who he is, the fact that he's an augment, and they're very much still banned in the Federation and Starfleet specifically. So you don't really get you're not going to get this sort of easy, happy ending solution to, oh, okay, they get back to the Federation and then they're just, they're brought into the fold and everything's great. He's going to have some additional adversity to overcome, and presumably, the crew is not going to all join Starfleet without him. So I think it's safe to assume that they'll all stick together. But it is interesting that they're, maybe in the future going to have to explore a storyline where they overcome that prejudice in Starfleet and in the Federation, or maybe that's something that is changed. Dal is maybe a catalyst for change. I don't know, but it is something they're going to have to explore pretty soon.
I really wish they would properly interrogate that idea, the idea that Starfleet and the Federation is tolerant of everyone except from select groups or select individuals, because we've had it now in 3 of the shows. Strange New Worlds, same thing, genetically enhanced individual in Una, she ain't allowed in now because of the circumstances of her.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Origin, or where she comes from, or stuff that was done to her in the past, whether that be through her choice or not. Picard mentions that Sivan was declined from Starfleet by being former Borg, something that Janeway apparently fought her corner for, which is something they haven't brought up here, actually, interestingly, but I suppose it's not relevant as of yet, or may never become relevant in that sense. But we have that, and now here we have the genetic engineering thing, and it's something that keeps coming up throughout things. So it feels like something that they're chomping at the bit to actually explore, but they haven't done it yet, and it's really frustrating me that we're not getting there. I imagine Strange New Worlds will explore it in season 2 to some degree, but we know it won't be a happy ending broadly because we know that it's still banned by the time you get to Bashir in the 24th century. So we'll make an exception for Una, maybe, is your best case scenario there. But really need to get into the fear of genetic engineering, this prejudice that's spread throughout the Federation and still exists, because you'll probably have people that are just conditioned to hate the genetically enhanced because that's what you get taught. They're banned. They're not allowed. If any of them come near you, get them arrested or whatever.
Especially with these characters who, just like anyone else who's born, nobody chooses to be. So it is this, it is this interesting intolerance of, these are people who are being denied personhood by the Federation, which is supposed to be this beacon of tolerance and understanding and welcoming to all. But if you were grown or developed in a lab, it's all bets are off. You're cast out of society essentially.
Yeah, all because of the eugenics wars and what they did.
Right,
Yeah.
all because of these wars and it is fertile ground for exploration. You're right, because you have these prejudices which go back hundreds of years at this point to these wars and the people who were used in them and who fought them. And yeah, it is going to be something that you're right, it's taking them a while to get to, but they're clearly angling towards that with Strange New Worlds. And you're right, that's not going to be some broader happy ending, but who knows, maybe even in the humble beginnings of Star Trek Prodigy, this is a ball that's going to get rolling down the hill.
Maybe, yeah. And for Dal specifically, it's not his fault. He only found out about his origin a couple of days ago.
Yeah, he's this, genetic chimera that's been engineered from, 20 plus different species. I forget if it's like 23 or 26 or something.
26 is the number they
Okay.
gave, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of different species. And yeah, it's something that they're going to continue to explore. It seems like we're learning about more of these buried inherent traits that have been engineered into Dal. So we're probably going to continue to explore how many different powers or abilities, for lack of a better word, that he has, and continue to sort of unlock his potential, which is a good metaphor for kids to see of like learning to unlock your potential, all that good stuff. Like, you can see where they're going with that. But yeah, I think exploring the prejudices that he's going to face, especially from the ostensibly super tolerant Federation, I think that's an interesting direction for them to go with the show. And it seems like they'll have to, because it's all coming to a head.
Yeah. And Dal isn't enhanced as such because the doctor, I forget her name, said that it was pretty sloppy work, and it's a wonder that he's able to stand up or function.
It's really just the fact that he's engineered rather than the specifics of the engineering. Like, someone in theory could be augmented to have something that others might consider to be a disability or something, just in theory. And presumably the Federation would have just as much of a problem with that person as someone who was engineered to have, superior strength or something.
Yeah. So how is Dal any different to Data? Because he was built.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And
He was
Data has a lot of
constructed-
enhancements, doesn't he? So he's
Yeah,
allowed in.
absolutely. Data, who has taken over the Enterprise multiple times, like Data, who has proven himself to be a security risk, much as we love and trust Data. It's also like, oh yeah, how many times have we seen Data just go absolutely bug shit? And we know that he could instantly kill everyone on board this ship if he decided to malfunction.
Yeah, someone triggers a thing in his brain and he just goes nuts. Yeah.
Goes absolutely nuts. Yeah. We make all sorts of allowances for that. We have debates about it, but we allow it.
Yeah.
And it is interesting that is sort of the final frontier of active prejudice left in the Federation to explore. So it makes sense that they're going to do that.
Yeah, I do like the idea that the Federation isn't perfect. That comes up a lot. It came up specifically in Deep Space Nine quite a lot, but I think we're getting little tastes of it in the modern Trek as well. Section 31 being so prominent in Discovery, for example. There's this dark Black Ops type organization that exists within Starfleet that almost exists to do the dirty job so that the rest of Starfleet can be clean, that kind of thing. And there's all these little, maybe this utopia isn't quite as utopian as you think it is, but we pretend it is. And I guess that's why you get some people turning their nose up at it in various shows.
Yeah, agreed. I think that might be one of the reasons why DS9 became and still is, my favorite series is that exploration of, Starfleet is not always this paragon of virtue there are times when it as a whole operates kind of on the margins, and where elements from within act in ways that are outright immoral.
Yeah, and you had it in Strange New Worlds as well, where they
Yep.
didn't go outside of Federation space to stop attacks on freighters. It's happening outside Federation space. We don't care. It's nothing to do with us. Prime Directive, just hide behind the Prime Directive. And you
Right.
have it in this show as well, because we know that in the future, the Volnakat tear themselves apart and Starfleet just watch. They don't do anything.
Yeah, that was right, exactly. I thought that was something that was really interesting to see explored here in Prodigy, was that dark side of the Prime Directive, where you can just cause absolute chaos. And it's this colonial sort of thing of like, okay, we're going to make contact with a society, although the interesting twist on that is that apparently the society was more advanced than the Federation, or at least as advanced when first contact was made, but then subsequently tore itself apart. And you're like, well, nothing we can do.
Yeah.
Hands off here.
Yeah, it's our fault, but whoops, we'll just fly away.
It's like we are directly responsible for everything that has happened since, and still not our problem somehow.
Yeah, but it hasn't happened yet, so they don't have to worry about it. I suppose.
Right.
Which is another issue that complicates things.
Yeah, of course. It's can you be guilty of something that hasn't happened yet? Yeah, it's that classic time travel paradox.
Yeah, and of course you can be, because it's what's going to happen, or it will happen unless.
Right. Yeah. Like if you follow along the causal chain, it is inevitable that this happens. But once you can stop it. But then paradoxes.
Yeah, it's all a mess.
It's quite a mess.
But body switching.
Yeah. But it makes for a good show. All of the things we're talking about makes for a good show. Yeah. So the episode more or less resolves with the Protostar gets back to Federation space and is confronted with what seems like all the ships.
Yeah.
Which of course is
fleet.
in accordance with the plan of the diviner and his co-conspirators, where they want communications or some sort of contact to happen, and the more Federation ships that are gathered in one place, the better.
Yeah, I like the subtlety of how that happened actually in the episode itself, because you had the Vindicator pretending to be Essentia. She manipulated Tysus into calling for reinforcements. She did it, but she did it really subtly, so it made it seem like it was his idea.
Yeah, it was very clever.
She said something. He was like, "Oh yeah, maybe I should call for backup. That'd be a good idea." It's like, yeah, great idea.
Yep.
Get all the ships in one place. That'll be great.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. I love that little subtleties, and it is actually quite funny that the Vindicator, Diviner, and Dreadnought are just on the Dauntless, and nobody knows what they're up to.
Yeah, I like that as well. And I guess the only other sort of the cliffhanger that we're left on ultimately is that Janeway is back in her body finally, and she has all the information that she needs in her head, and she's locked away in the brig, and everyone thinks she's nuts.
Yeah, thanks, Dal. Well done.
Yep. Thanks, Dal. Thanks for acting like an absolute fucking lunatic.
Yeah, you've essentially crippled our chances of resolving this situation quickly. Great
Good
job.
Yeah. Pretty funny.
Yeah, I liked the scene that Dal as Janeway had with the Vindicator, not the Vindicator, the Diviner, that sets up the notion of him being slightly changed by his experience on the Dauntless. He talks about not expecting to experience the kindness that he's experienced, and it's starting to shift his perception of Starfleet a bit.
I agree. I liked that too. You sort of started to get a little bit of a sense of, I wonder if that's the direction that they're going to go, before he gained his memories back, when he was just sort of on the Dauntless hanging out with Janeway and the crew. It seemed like he was getting along with everyone and everything was fine, and you wondered to yourself like, I wonder if this experience, this positive experience, is going to change him long term. And it seems like maybe at some he still feels like he's got to do this particular course of action. We sort of understand his reasons, but it is maybe the beginnings of him reaching a new understanding.
He still cares about Gwen. That's not in doubt.
Absolutely.
That seems to be at the forefront of his mind at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that he seemed to pause for thought when Dallas Janeway, again, because he doesn't think about anything that comes out of his mouth. He's like, yeah, don't worry, I'd do anything for Gwen too. And the diviner sort of reflects on that for a moment. It's not really clear exactly what he makes of that comment, or if it'll have any kind of consequence. But I'm curious to see where they go with these stories. I know at least what happens in the next couple of episodes, but I'm thinking more. I'm thinking more sort of long term, beyond season 1. But yeah, I really dig this show, man. I'm glad we get to talk about it. I'm glad that they're doing it, and I really hope that the show is finding an audience, continues to find an audience, because it really is very good Star Trek.
Yeah, and it's definitely getting season 2, so that's positive.
And it's definitely getting a season 2, so we don't have to worry about that. And do we know how long season 2 is? Is it another 20 episode?
I have no idea. I don't know if they've announced it, and if they have, I've missed it. So you'd have to imagine. So I wonder if they just book these sort of Nickelodeon shows in blocks like that, and we'll make 20 of them, or.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think they do. I think they order a bunch all at once. It's probably more cost effective that way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the body switch reset, I really liked. Actually, I like how they seeded the phaser could be the catalyst.
Yep.
That counts as a connection somehow.
Yep.
And
somehow.
Yeah, and then Janeway as Dal was like, "I've got a phaser. Just shoot.
Yeah.
I'll just shoot myself." And
right.
It sort of might sting a bit, the repetition of that when she was restoring the holograms' memories. This might sting a bit, and then she said it later on as well when she's about to shoot herself.
It's a clever show with good writing. I think that everyone involved deserves all the accolades that they're getting. I have no idea what the viewership of this show is, in the era of streaming, and I know that this airs on Nickelodeon as well. Like it seems so hard to know, but I think it's popular. I think people are watching. I think that people are excited. I hope they are, at the very least, because it's well worth a watch. Even if you don't think animated Star Trek is your bag, give it a try. I think certainly after the first, they're short episodes, so give the first 4 or 5 a try. See if you can get into it. It's a really rewarding watch.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Like I said, my favorite, after seeing the full season, my favorite modern Star Trek. I think it's the most consistent. And obviously we have Lower Decks, which is a completely different barrel anyway, but
yeah, I think it's the most consistently excellent first season of Star Trek, maybe since the first season of TOS. I mean, it's really quite good.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and it's interesting how it's the show aimed at kids that seems to be doing things the best. And I wonder if they just feel less pressure to deliver prestige television. But they're just doing it naturally, or maybe there's less oversight on it in the way that you might see on other shows.
Yeah, I think it's a function of them being, well, they put a good team together, and they are being allowed to just kind of do their own thing. I think Lower Decks exists somewhere kind of in between the two. Obviously, there's some involvement with the kind of live action teams as they're having a crossover episode with Strange New Worlds, remarkably. So I think there's maybe a little bit more conscientiousness on Lower Deck, on the behalf of the Lower Decks team, maybe, with making sure that we fit neatly into whatever's going on in the live action world. But yeah, Prodigy just seems to be content to do its own thing, and I mean, it is still very much, it's utilizing these legacy characters very well as it happens, and even bringing back a character like Okona. Like there are some very unexpected directions that this show is going, and yeah, it seems to be a function of them just being allowed to do their thing. There's probably a lesson there.
Yeah, it's really weird that they brought back O'Connor. I just, of all the characters to bring back, I couldn't believe that was the one that they chose.
I know. Pretty wild.
It's really crazy. Yeah, yeah. One thing about this that I really liked as well with the Janeway and Dal's body thing, where how much trust she puts in the crew. She seems to recognize their ability very quickly, because it gets to the point, because I think it's Zero that says, we're going to figure out how this happened and then try and reverse it. And Janeway's just like, okay, you go do that, and I'll go talk to the hologram.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it shows a lot of, which again is a good thing to have in a family-oriented program that's going to be watched by a lot of kids. The adults trusting, or the quote unquote adult figures, in the show, trusting this crew of kids to do their jobs and to do them well without a lot of supervision or oversight or overbearing instruction.
Yeah. When I think about it, actually, watching Star Trek growing up did not prepare me very well for the world of micromanagement and employment.
Right.
Because you don't see very much of that in Star Trek, or when you do, it's that they're the crappy boss, or they're the boss that needs to learn a lesson. But in real life, it's, no, your boss is just a micromanager and you have to put up with it. There's nothing you can do to change it.
Maybe it's my built-in laziness and not actually management strategy, but anytime I've been in management roles, my attitude is, sort of been probably largely informed by Star Trek, just sort of been very sort of hands-off. I just sort of assume that you're also a professional here to do a job, and that you're going to do it well, and that you don't need to be told exactly how to do it. And sometimes it leads to really disappointing results. But also, I just feel like I want to treat everyone like they're competent adults who want to, if not be enthusiastic about their job, or at least choosing to be there. and can be trusted to execute their job requirements without supervision.
Yeah, and if they can't, then that's something you have to deal with as a boss. But
right,
constantly looking over people's shoulder isn't a good way to inspire confidence.
Everyone hates that.
I think it's been getting worse for a lot of people when it comes to the home working thing since lockdown. I can't see these people, so I don't know what they're doing. And perhaps some people abuse that, and perhaps some don't. I'm not going to say anything in case anyone's listening, but they won't be. But it's I think there's arguments for both. So any kids watching this show, most of your bosses won't be like Janeway, unfortunately.
Right.
Most of your bosses will be, I don't know. We don't have a micromanaging equivalent in this show, but
no, right. It's not an accident that we don't have a lot of examples of bad bosses in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Most of the captains tend to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Most of the senior officers tend to be pretty good. It's the Badmirals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Expect more Badmirals in your life than in Star Trek.
Yeah. So I can't say what I think is going to happen next because I know, but what do you think is going to happen next? And I just wouldn't react. I wouldn't.
I think everyone dies. Yeah,
everyone dies.
I think everyone dies. I think it's a
massive warp core breach and everyone
unexpectedly tragic ending to this first season, and season 2 is just an entirely new crew.
And they kill off Janeway as well, the real Janeway. It's insane.
Yeah. She only lives on as a hologram. We're gonna meet her 1,000 years in the future in some alien museum.
Yeah, she'll cameo in Discovery season 4. No, season 5.
God. Yeah, that's exactly. They'll run across the long abandoned Janeway hologram.
God, yeah.
No, I genuinely don't. I mean, the obvious answer is everything works out. Like I think that things work out and that the Federation doesn't get wiped out. My bold prediction is that the Federation does not, in fact, get wiped out. I think Yeah, I think that there will likely be. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some recognition of there's maybe this problem can't be solved or can't be solved easily, and so they're going to have to go on a sort of forced exile, or because Dal can't be accepted into Starfleet, they choose not to join. They say, well, Dal's our captain, and if he's not good enough to start for Starfleet, then we're not going to join either. And they go off and do their own thing. The tough thing is, like you can't imagine the Federation is just going to let them continue to use the Protostar, no questions asked. So I don't really know how they resolve all of that.
Yeah, could be a. So from what you're saying, it's almost like a keep the Protostar because we can't fix this, and off you go and do whatever you want.
Right. Yeah, that's the sort of that's where my mind is going as a kind of a logical end result, is that we want to keep this crew together and we want them to have a ship to use, and we've come to accept and get used to the idea of this being their ship, so it seems unlikely that the show would choose to take it away from them. So I think that they're gonna keep it, and it'll be because they can't ultimately resolve this particular issue, or it'll be the sort of thing of, we're going to have a team working on it, behind the scenes in the background while you go off and have another season or two of adventures.
Okay. I wouldn't say either way whether you're right or wrong, because that wouldn't be fair, and it would be a breach of embargo as well at this point in time.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I don't want you breaching any embargoes.
That would be bad.
All right, my friend. Any last notes on this week's episode?
No, I think we about covered it. It's an episode of two halves. The Janeway on the Protostar thing was all good. The Dal on the Dauntless, not as good. But I still found it funny.
Yeah.
Still, I think Kate Mulgrew's performance was really helpful in carrying that for me.
Agreed. I think they did a good job with it overall. Wasn't my favorite episode of the season, but the last week and this week both kind of, again, I really hesitate to use the term low point because there really haven't been any low points for me this season at all, but haven't reached the highs of other episodes.
How versatile is Murph, though, in terms of just being in space?
I know.
Inside a warp bubble?
I like that there's a level of literal and storytelling pliability that we have now with this character, because seemingly can do anything. Like I'm curious if we're going to have kind of a Groot situation where we've got this character go from being like a juvenile who can't really verbalize to being maybe a walking, talking, active member of the crew at some point in the future.
Could be, yeah. I'm worried that it's a crutch they're going to keep leaning on, though. We need a Swiss Army knife to solve this problem. We have Murph.
I guess it is a little bit like that, but I'm also kind of, that's sort of one of the conventions of it being a short animated kid show. I'm fine with that. If it was a little bit too convenient, it gets a little annoying in, I think, a live action show where the stakes feel maybe a little bit higher. Maybe they're going for a little bit more of a grounded feel that feels a little bit more untenable as a narrative device. But here, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
All right, my friend, I think that's all I have for this week's episode 2. So, thank you all for joining us for another episode of We Are Starfleet. You can follow us on Twitter still, I think, maybe, at We Are Starfleet. Craig, actually, you've got socials of your own to plug. Why don't you do that?
Sure. So you can find me on Neil Before Blog. That's neilbeforeblog.co.uk, and on Facebook and Twitter. The Living Construct hasn't torn Twitter apart yet, so it's still there, but if you type it in, you'll find it. I review Prodigy. I was reviewing the Winchesters until it went on hiatus. The Odd Film as well. We just released our Christmas special to the attached podcast, which is called Neil Before Pod. You can find that anywhere. Our Christmas special is where we tried to brainstorm our own Christmas movie. And the
nice.
end result is quite something. Please do listen to it. We had a lot of fun making it, and you can tell us whether it's a film you would actually watch, because that'd be useful feedback to have for when it never gets made.
Right.
There's just no way that's going to happen. But yeah, you can find me there. And on Twitter, I'm under Nemesis4909, which obligation to do is to tell you it's not a Star Trek reference. Initially, it was started life as a Resident Evil reference and then became a Star Trek reference. So that's pretty much where I'm found. Also crop up periodically on We Made This, although I haven't been anywhere except We Are Starfleet for a while. But I'll show up somewhere at some point. You'll hear my voice across the network.
Excellent. It's always good to hear your voice and to chat with you about Star Trek and anything else. Thank you again for joining us. Please remember that We Are Starfleet is a part of the We Made This podcast network, and Star Trek Prodigy isn't all we're discussing on the network, so stay tuned for a taste of what you might have missed out on elsewhere on the network in just a moment.
Are you a fan of the Marvel Universe?
Can you tell your Kang from your Doctor Doom?
Well, if so, boy, do we have a podcast for you.
Podcast 616 is the We Made This Network's long-running Marvel podcast, and it's under new management.
We're your hosts, Ashley Thomas
and Hugh McStay.
And together, we are going to lead you every step of the way through the Marvel Cinematic Universe's upcoming multiverse saga.
Everything from She-Hulk to Avengers Secret Wars will be covered on the podcast in the kind of detail that would make a Wikipedia article blush.
We're going to have some detours into the wider Marvel world where we'll look at non-MCU projects dating all the way back to Marvel's origins in the groovy, funky 60s, and all the way up to the birth of the greatest franchise in cinema history.
And we'll be joined on our adventure by a roll call of guests so impressively knowledgeable that they'll make the Avengers themselves look clueless by comparison.
So if you like your opinions sharper than Wolverine's claws,
or takes hotter than the Human Torch's underpants,
then get Podcast 616 in your ears as a matter of urgency.
You'll love it 3000.
Podcast 616.
Disassemble.